The blizzard swallowed my screams as my father shoved me out into the freezing darkness. "No son of mine kisses boys," he roared before the door slammed, leaving 16-year-old Ethan alone with nothing but the clothes on his back and a heart shattered by betrayal. The wind clawed at his face like invisible talons, and the snow piled so thick on the Iowa plains that each step felt like wading through wet concrete. He pounded on the farmhouse door until his fists bled, calling for his mother, for his little sister Lily, anyone. Silence answered. Inside, the light stayed on, warm and mocking. That night in rural Cedar Falls, Ethan learned what abandonment truly meant. By dawn, he was half frozen, stumbling along the county road toward the interstate. A long-haul trucker finally pulled over, took one look at the shivering kid, and drove him all the way to Chicago without asking questions. The shelter on the south side smelled of disinfectant and desperation, but it had beds and hot soup. Ethan sat on the edge of a cot, staring at the concrete wall, replaying the moment his father had caught him and Tommy kissing behind the barn. The slap still rang in his ears. "Get out and stay out," Dad had snarled. Mom had stood there crying, but never spoke up. Lily had hidden behind the couch. At 16, Ethan had no money, no plan, only a backpack with a change of clothes and the crushing weight of being told his love was a sin. The first weeks blurred into survival. He washed dishes at a diner for minimum wage, slept on the shelter cot, and attended night classes for his GED. Every night, the cold crept back into his dreams. The same blizzard, the same slammed door. Counselors at the shelter noticed his quiet determination and connected him with a scholarship program for LGBTQ youth. Ethan threw himself into studying like it was the only rope out of the pit. He learned to keep his head down, to smile politely, and never mention the boy he had loved back home. But the loneliness gnawed deeper than the winter wind ever had. He wondered if anyone would ever look at him without disgust. He wondered if he would ever stop feeling like the boy left to freeze. By the time he earned his GED at 17, Ethan had saved enough for a tiny studio apartment shared with 2 other shelter grads. The city noise never quite drowned out the memories, but it gave him purpose. He enrolled at community college, majoring in finance because numbers didn't judge. Late nights in the library, he traced the path his life might have taken if that door had never slammed. He told himself the past was dead. Yet every holiday, season the snow outside his window brought the same ache. He was surviving, yes, but he wasn't living. Not yet. Little did he know that across the city, a man named Alex was about to walk into the shelter and change everything. Alex arrived at the shelter as a volunteer counselor the same week Ethan turned 18. Tall, with kind hazel eyes and a calm voice that made the room feel safer, Alex had survived his own family rejection years earlier. He noticed Ethan immediately, the quiet kid who read finance textbooks during breaks instead of joining group activities. "You don't have to carry it alone," Alex said one evening after a group session. Ethan almost walked away, but something in Alex's steady gaze made him stay. For the first time since the blizzard Ethan talked about that night, the words tumbled out like the snow itself, raw and unstoppable. Their friendship grew slowly, carefully. Alex never pushed. He simply showed up. Coffee runs after class, study sessions at the library, quiet walks along Lake Michigan where the wind off the water reminded Ethan of home but felt less hostile. Alex shared his own story. Kicked out at 17, living on friends' couches until he earned a social work degree. "The world tried to freeze me too," he said one night as they watched the city lights sparkle. "But I refused to let it." Ethan felt seen for the first time, not as a problem or a sinner, but as a whole person. When Alex gently took his hand during a snowy walk in Millennium Park, Ethan didn't pull away. The touch was warm, safe, and terrifying all at once. College life tested them both. Ethan faced whispers from classmates who guessed he was gay, the occasional slur muttered in the hallway. Alex stood beside him, teaching him how to respond with quiet strength instead of shame. They studied together, laughed together, and slowly built something deeper than friendship. One spring evening on the lakefront, Alex kissed him softly under the stars. "I'm proud of the man you're becoming," he whispered. Ethan cried that night, not from pain, but but from the relief of being loved without conditions. Yet the old wound still throbbed. He still hadn't told Alex the full story of his family, the farm, the sister he sometimes dreamed about. He told himself it didn't matter anymore. Chicago was his home now. By graduation, Ethan had landed an internship at a downtown investment firm. The long hours kept the past at bay. Alex finished his master's and took a full-time job at the shelter. They moved into a small apartment together, sharing grocery runs and late-night talks about everything except Iowa. Ethan's career took off. His sharp mind turned struggling portfolios around. Colleagues respected him. Alex was his anchor. For the first time, Ethan believed he could build a future free of that slammed door. But life has a way of circling back. One ordinary Tuesday, a letter arrived from Cedar Falls with Lily's handwriting on the envelope. The farm was failing. Dad was sick, and suddenly the past wasn't dead after all. The letter sat on the kitchen counter for 3 days before Ethan opened it. Lily wrote in careful script. The bank was threatening foreclosure, Dad's heart condition had worsened, and Mom barely left the house. I know what he did to you, she wrote. I was too scared to stop it back then. But you're the only one who can help now. Please. Ethan read it twice, then folded it and slid it into a drawer. Alex found him staring out the window at the Chicago skyline. Talk to me, Alex said gently. For the first time, Ethan told the whole story. The kiss, the shove, the blizzard, the silence from his mother and sister. Alex listened without judgment, then pulled him close. You don't owe them anything, but if you want to face this, I'll be right beside you. The next 2 years became a masterclass in balance. Ethan rose quickly at the firm, closing deals that made partners take notice. He bought his first suit, learned to negotiate with millionaires, and discovered a power he never knew he possessed, the ability to control outcomes. At home, he and Alex built a life of quiet joys, Sunday brunches, volunteering at the shelter together, weekend drives to nowhere. Alex's steady love became Ethan's compass. Yet the letter haunted him. He started having nightmares again, waking in cold sweats with a taste of snow on his tongue. Alex would hold him until the shaking stopped. Your worth isn't decided by them, he'd whisper. It never was. Through it all, Ethan formed a close friendship with Marcus, another gay man at the firm who had lost his own family to prejudice. Late nights over whiskey, Marcus shared stories of his own return home years later. I went back expecting hate, Marcus said. I found regret instead, but I made them earn my forgiveness. Ethan listened, weighing the words against his own scars. He watched Alex help shelter kids the same age he had been, and something shifted inside him. The boy left in the blizzard was becoming a man who could choose his own path. When the firm asked him to lead a new division acquiring distressed rural properties, Ethan saw the irony. Cedar Falls was on the list. He could walk away, or he could return, not as the broken teenager, but as the one holding the pen that would sign the farm's future. Alex sensed the change. One evening, he took Ethan's hands across the dinner table. If you go back, we go together. No more carrying it alone. Ethan nodded, heart pounding with equal parts fear and resolve. He called Lily the next morning. I'm coming home, he said. The line went quiet. Then Lily whispered, thank you. As he hung up, Ethan realized the decision wasn't about saving the farm. It was about finally deciding who he was and who he refused to be. The drive from Chicago to Cedar Falls took 8 hours, but it felt like traveling back in time. Ethan gripped the steering wheel of his leased SUV, Alex riding shotgun with a calm that steadied them both. Snow flurries danced across the highway, reminding Ethan of the night everything changed. He was 29 now, successful, loved, and terrified. The farmhouse looked smaller than he remembered, paint peeling, fields fallow under a thin blanket of white. Lily waited on the porch, older and thinner, eyes wide with disbelief. She hugged him so hard he couldn't breathe. You came, she whispered. I didn't think you would. Inside, the house smelled of coffee and regret. Mom sat at the kitchen table, hands trembling as she looked at the son she hadn't seen in 13 years. Ethan, her voice cracked. Dad was in the living room recliner, oxygen tube in his nose, face gaunt. He stared at Ethan like he was seeing a ghost. No apology came, only silence. Ethan introduced Alex simply. "This is my partner." The word landed like a stone in still water. Mom's eyes filled with tears. Lily smiled weakly. Dad turned his face to the wall. The next days were a minefield of conversations and silences. Ethan met with the bank, reviewed the books, and realized the farm was months from auction. His firm could buy it outright and turn it into a development project, or he could restructure the debt himself. The power sat strangely in his hands, the same hands his father had once shoved out into the cold. Alex stayed close, fielding phone calls from Chicago, cooking meals in the old kitchen, and quietly supporting every difficult talk. One night, Ethan and Alex walked the snowy fields where he and Tommy had once kissed. "I hated myself for so long because of this place," Ethan admitted. Alex squeezed his hand. "You survived it. That's strength, not shame." Tensions rose when Dad finally spoke. "I don't need charity from whatever this is," he muttered, gesturing at Ethan and Alex. The words stung, but Ethan didn't flinch. "This isn't charity, Dad. It's a choice. My choice." Lily pulled Ethan aside later. "He's scared. We all are. But you coming back, it's changing things." Misunderstandings piled up. Mom thought Ethan wanted revenge. Lily feared he'd sell everything and leave again. Through it all, Alex remained the calm center, reminding Ethan that growth wasn't about erasing the past, but choosing how it shaped the future. The confrontation came on a bright Saturday afternoon when the sun turned the snow into diamonds. Ethan gathered everyone in the living room. Dad sat rigid in his chair. Mom clutched a handkerchief. Lily stood beside Ethan like a shield. Alex waited quietly by the window, giving them space but ready to step in. Ethan laid out the numbers in clear, calm tones. The offer from his firm, the alternative where he personally guaranteed the loan and restructured the farm into a sustainable operation. "I can save this place," he said, "but there are conditions. No more hate. No more silence. You accept me, us, or I walk away. The choice is yours now." Dad's face reddened. "You think money buys forgiveness?" Ethan met his gaze steadily. "No, I'm not buying forgiveness. I'm offering a future, but I won't let the past freeze me again." Mom broke first, tears streaming as she apologized for every year of silence. Lily admitted she had known Ethan was gay long before that night and had been too afraid to defend him. Dad stayed quiet longest, staring at the floor. The room felt smaller than the blizzard ever had. That evening, after hours of painful truths, Dad finally spoke. "I was wrong," he said, voice rough. "Didn't know how to be right." It wasn't a grand speech, but it was enough. Ethan felt the old ice inside him begin to crack. Alex stepped forward, offering a handshake that Dad slowly accepted. The gesture was awkward, imperfect but real. Later, alone with Alex in the guest room, Ethan let the tears come. "I thought coming back would break me," he whispered. "Instead, it's making me whole." Alex kissed his forehead. "You did the hardest part, choosing love over fear." The following week brought small miracles. Dad asked Alex about his work at the shelter. Mom baked Ethan's favorite pie. Lily introduced her own fiancé and confessed she had come out to her friends about supporting her brother years ago. The farm's future was secured with Ethan's signature on new papers. But the real victory was quieter. Sunday dinner where laughter replaced silence, where Alex's hand rested openly on Ethan's under the table. The boy abandoned in the cold had returned, not for revenge, but for healing. Spring arrived early that year, melting the last patches of snow and turning the Iowa fields green again. Ethan and Alex stood on the porch watching the sunrise paint the farmhouse gold. The loan was restructured, the farm saved, and Dad's health had stabilized with better care. Ethan had taken a leave from the firm to oversee the transition, turning the property into a community-supported agriculture project that could support the family for decades. Lily and her fiancé helped plant the first crops. Mom hummed in the kitchen. Even Dad grumbled less, occasionally nodding at Alex with something close to respect. One evening, as they sat around the fire pit, Ethan looked at the people who had once broken him and felt only peace. He had faced the worst night of his life and chosen not to repeat it. Alex slipped an arm around his shoulders. "You rewrote the ending. he said softly. Ethan smiled, remembering the boy who had nearly frozen to death. That boy was gone. In his place stood a man who understood that strength wasn't about never falling. It was about rising and reaching back for those who once pushed you down. The farm thrived. Ethan and Alex split their time between Chicago and Cedar Falls, building a life that honored both worlds. Old wounds didn't vanish overnight, but they stopped bleeding. Conversations grew easier. Laughter came more freely. Ethan realized the greatest power he had gained wasn't financial. It was the freedom to love openly and to offer that same freedom to others. As the stars came out over the Iowa plains, Ethan turned to Alex and whispered, "Thank you for walking through the storm with me." Alex kissed him under the same sky that had once felt so cruel. The circle was complete. The boy left in the blizzard had returned not to conquer, but to heal, and in healing others, he had finally healed himself. True or false? Can a single act of forgiveness truly erase the pain of years of abandonment and prejudice?